Hello everyone, I am Xiao. In Taipei, there is a girl who married from Zion. When she first arrived in this land, she was a little shy and uneasy in the face of the unfamiliar men accent and the wet, but she gradually integrated into the enthusiasm and fireworks here. From not knowing how to pick vegetables to teaching her neighbors to make dumplings, from missing the New Year flavor of her hometown to receiving a crooked hand-made lantern on the Lantern Festival, her mental journey is full of warmth and touching. Next, I will use the first person to tell the girl's experience in Taiwan and take you to feel the collision and fusion of the two New Year flavors. I'm married from Zion, and it's quite embarrassing to talk about this. I remember that when I first came to Taiwan, I didn't know anything, and I didn't even know how to go to the vegetable market. That vegetable market is different from Zion. I couldn't understand the uncles and aunts here at first. The Minnan accent sounded awkward, but they were really enthusiastic. When they saw me standing in front of the stall and staring blankly, they took the initiative to ask me what I wanted to buy and introduced me which vegetables were fresh. The first time I went to the vegetable market, I remember it clearly. It just rained that day and the ground was still wet. I walked into the market trembling light with the money my mother-in-law gave me. I could hear the vegetable vendors shouting from a distance. Some spoke Taiwanese, some spoke Mandarin. It was very lively. I stood in front of a stall selling green vegetables, looking at the vegetables I couldn't name, and I was confused. The vegetable vendor saw me and dazed and asked me with a smile, "Miss, do you want to buy vegetables?" I stammered and said that I was new and didn't know how to choose. The auntie immediately became enthusiastic and took a bunch of water spinach to explain to me that it was best to cook soup, and it was also great to stir-fry with some minced garlic. In this way, I gradually became familiar with life here. My mother-in-law is a good person and never gives me a bad look. I just miss home sometimes, especially during the Chinese New Year. When I was in Zion, I started to get busy on the 23rd day of the 12th lunar month. I remember that my mother would clean the house spotlessly every year, even wiping the dust on the door frame. My father was responsible for buying New Year's goods, and he would always come back with big bags and small bags, including peanuts, melon seeds, various snacks, and my favorite Shaanxi specialties. But the New Year atmosphere here really different from Zion. I remember when I first came here, I was wondering why there weren't unified Spring Festival slogans on the streets and no loudspeakers playing songs. My mother-in-law said that the New Year here is for fun and it's okay. Only then did I realize that the Spring Festival can be celebrated like this. What touched me the most was that early in the morning of the first New Year's Eve, I was preparing the New Year's Eve dinner with my mother-in-law. While we were busy, Mrs. Wang from next door knocked on the door and said she wanted to give us a New Year's gift. I quickly invited her in. Without saying a word, she rolled up her sleeves and came to help. While helping, she chatted with me and asked me what we eat during the New Year in Zion. What are the customs? Speaking of the New Year's Eve dinner in Zion, I couldn't stop talking. I told her about the dumplings my mother made. The stuffing had to be prepared a day in advance, the pork had to be chopped very finely, and winter bamboo shoots and mushrooms had to be added. Mrs. Wang's eyes lit up when she heard it, and she said, "Why don't we make some dumplings too?" This made me very happy, and I quickly took out the flour and stuffing. My mother-in-law was also very supportive, and she even called a few neighbors to learn how to make dumplings. After a while, our living room became lively. Some were in charge of kneading the dough, some were chopping stuffing, and some were rolling the dough. Even children came over to learn. It was funny that these aunts were making dumplings for the first time. They were clumsy, but they were very serious. Some made the dumplings into soup dumplings, and some made them into steamed buns, but no one was disgusted. Instead, they laughed. As I taught them, I thought of the time in Zion. During the Chinese New Year, the community director always liked to organize some formalistic activities. Everyone was forced to participate and laughed reluctantly. But now, although the dumplings were a little ugly, the happiness from the heart was real. While making dumplings, I don't know who suggested that we bring these dumplings to the community to share with everyone. As soon as this was said, everyone responded immediately. My mother-in-law said it was a good idea, which would allow more people to taste authentic Zion dumplings. My heart was warmed. This was not about sharing dumplings, but clearly sharing a friendship. Later, I learned that celebrating the New Year here is not just about joining in the fun at home. The community holds a party every New Year's Eve. Everyone brings their own prepared dishes to share with each other. Some people perform and some organize games. It's very lively. This is completely different from Zion. I remember when I was in Zion, the New Year was getting more and more distorted. The street office required that uniform Spring Festival couplets must be posted, and even the setting off of firecrackers was regulated. We also had to participate in some inexplicable theme activities. The lanterns hung at the door of each house were the same, which was boring to look at. That afternoon, we came to the activity center with several plates of dumplings, but we didn't expect it to be so lively inside. Oh, I will never forget that scene in my life. There were more than a dozen long tables in the activity center, and the tables were filled with dishes brought by various families, including hack of pork, min and oyster omelet, and aboriginal wild vegetable soup. Just smelling the fragrance, I couldn't walk. What surprised me the most was that someone actually set up a karaoke bar. An old man stood on the stage and sang an old Taiwanese song. His singing was not very good, but there was constant applause from the audience. I stood in the corner and watched all this, feeling mixed emotions. During the Chinese New Year in Zion, even if it was a party organized by the street office, it was just a formality. Who dared to sing on the stage? When the dumplings were served, everyone was very happy. Wow, this is the dumplings in Zion. They look so special. Come and try them and see how everyone is talking about them. They are more enthusiastic than my family. A little girl ate one. Her eyes lit up, and she immediately picked up the second one. I almost cried when I saw this scene. This is not eating dumplings, but tasting the homesickness of a stranger. It was dark after dinner, but the activity center was still lively. Young people were playing bingo, and there were prizes for winning. My mother-in-law and I also played. Although we didn't win any prizes, the atmosphere was very happy. Someone suggested setting off fireworks, and everyone rushed outside. The night sky was particularly bright that day, with a round moon hanging in the sky. Everyone was setting off fairy sticks, and some people were taking pictures crazily with their mobile phones. I stood there looking at the scene in front of me, and suddenly remembered that when I was in Zion, you had to consider the time and location to set off fireworks. If it was a little loud, someone would report it. It's not like here you can set it off whenever you want, and it's done as long as you have fun. It was noisy until midnight, and the community gradually quieted down. On the way home, my mother-in-law took my arm and said that this year's New Year's Eve dinner was particularly lively. My heart was full of emotion. This is not the New Year. It's like going back to my childhood, when the Spring Festival was so comfortable and happy. A few days after the Chinese New Year, the Lantern Festival arrived. The Lantern Festival here is also very special. Not only do we eat glutinous rice balls, but we also carry lanterns. The aunts in the community have long been planning to take the children to make lanterns together. I also followed to join in the fun. Although I didn't make them very well, the atmosphere was really good. The children chattered and said they wanted to give me a surprise. After sending me away, I didn't know what they were doing. In the evening, they came to me with a rabbit-shaped lantern. The lantern was crooked, but it said, "Welcome to join our big family." When I saw these words, tears came down. When I was in Zion, the Lantern Festival almost became a performance. The Lantern Festival organized by the government is very beautiful, but it has too much commercial flavor. How can there be such a handmade lantern? The warm days pass just like that. Every bit of my life in Taiwan makes me understand more and more what the real flavor of the New Year is. The Spring Festival here is not for false excitement or formalism. Everything is so natural and so free. Neighbors visit each other, neighbors visit, chat, eat. This kind of fireworks is what the Chinese New Year should be like. When I was in Zion, the flavor of the New Year was getting weaker and weaker. Everyone was busy dealing with various formalistic activities, and even visiting relatives had to be planned. The unified Spring Festival couplets and slogans on the streets, as well as those stereotyped programs, all make the Spring Festival seem like an endless performance. But here I found the feeling of celebrating the New Year when I was a child. I remember one day I talked about this with my mother-in-law, saying that the New Year here reminded me of my childhood. My mother-in-law smiled and said that the New Year should be happy and not think too much. Although this sentence is simple, it is really true. Now I look forward to every Chinese New Year, not because it is so lively, but because everything here is so real and warm. As time goes by, I also learned to greet my neighbors in Taiwanese and learned to make some Taiwanese special New Year dishes. Every New Year's Eve, I still make dumplings, but now it's not only to relieve my homesickness, but also to share the taste of our Zion with the neighbors here. They will also teach me to make some traditional Taiwanese New Year dishes and tell me about the customs here. Although I left Zion, where I was born and raised, I found another kind of warmth in Taiwan. The people here use the simplest way to make me understand the true meaning of the Chinese New Year. It's not those forms, not those performances, but the most sincere emotional exchanges between people. This is what the Spring Festival should look like, free, real, and full of human touch. Sometimes I can't sleep at night, and I will think of the days in Zion. Over the years, I feel that my hometown has changed more and more. In the past, neighbors could visit each other during the Chinese New Year, but now every household has to close the door. The street office sends people to check every day, saying that it is for a civilized festival. Even setting off firecrackers has to be fearful. What's even more annoying is that now you are not even allowed to write Spring Festival couplets. You can't even recognize all the characters on the couplets that the community distributes, but you still have to post them. If you write them yourself, they will be torn down in less than half a day. Even to release a balloon, you have to ask what color it is. There are so many rules and restrictions that people don't even have the heart to celebrate the new year. I remember calling home last year, and my mother said that now during the new year, even dancing in the square needs to apply, fill out forms, and be reviewed. You have to report in advance what song you want to dance. That's not all. People from the street office are hanging around downstairs every day saying they want to take pictures and participate in some civilized community evaluation. Old neighbors who have lived here for decades now have to look left and right before speaking for fear of saying something wrong. Listening to this, I trembled in my heart. Why is it so difficult to celebrate the new year? People in Taiwan eat and drink as they please and live their lives as they want. They live so freely. People here don't have to worry all day long, don't have to look at anyone's face, and do whatever they want. This is called living like a human being. Sometimes I wonder what ordinary people want for the new year is actually very simple. Being able to chat and laugh with neighbors, being able to be reunited with family. Isn't that enough? Why do we have to make so many rules and regulations, making a good festival so suffocating for everyone? The separation of mountains and seas not only separates to ways of celebrating the new year, but also separates to ways of living. After understanding this, I cherish my days in Taiwan even more. That's all for today's video. If you think what I said is interesting, please like and follow me. Your support is my biggest motivation to update. Thank you, everyone.